So I would come here as a young boy. My dad came from England after the war. The first thing he wanted to do was to take us to see Toronto sports. Once you got in the stadium, it was a magical place. You walked up the stairs and there was the field, this wonderful green infield lying before you. You could smell the grass, you could smell the popcorn. We always wanted a hot dog, and ooh, it was very expensive. It was 25 cents. And the sounds were great too. The fans were really into the game. They were very close to the field. They would often engage in conversation with the ball players. As you kind of sat on the first base side, you could see the Canada Multi building off to your left. You could see the tip-top building sometimes if you were sitting on the third base side. So you really had a kind of a view of Toronto, and you were looking out. You were looking out into Lake Ontario.
As constituted at the moment, the Leafs are not a First Division ball club, but the acquisition of a couple of starting and winning pitchers, along with a good hitting first baseman and perhaps another outfielder and infielder, will make them a contender.
The Toronto team that became professional started in the 1886 season in the International League, but that team evaporated after the 1890 season. Come about 5 years later, the Toronto Maple Leafs were effectively resuscitated and moved back into the International League. And they did so under the guidance of a fellow named Lol Solomon. And Solomon was a fascinating character in Toronto sports history and decided to build his ballpark and decided to support the building of it on Hanlon's Point on the island. And why? Well, because he owned the ferry company. The most notable thing about the Hanlon's Point ballpark, it is a site of Babe Ruth's one and only minor league home run that he hit for Providence. I always like to say to people, remember in 1914, Babe Ruth wasn't Babe Ruth. He was just a guy playing for the other team who hit a home run. The account in the Star Weekly says it landed in the bleachers. Others, though, like the myth that it may have landed in the water and may still be bobbing around on the bottom here, covered in mud and silt. So the Toronto Maple Leafs played at the Hanlon's Point ballpark through the 1925 season and then moved to the new Maple Leaf Stadium at the foot of Bathurst Street, where they remained through the 1967 season. By, I guess, the early 60s, Torontonians began to tire of being minor league. They thought of themselves as major league. And after the 1967 season, the Toronto Maple Leafs left for Louisville. The stadium itself was torn down shortly after. We were essentially without baseball at a professional level until the Blue Jays returned, of course, to Exhibition Stadium in 1977, and their triumphs began from then on.